I'd like to call to order the meeting of the King George County School Board. In a moment, if you'd please stand, and we'll have the invocation, which will be led by Randy Garvey, who's a church leader at Thrive Christian Fellowship, and then we'll have Potomac Elementary leading us in the pledge, and then remain standing for a moment of silence. Please stand.
Let us pray. Father, help me to pray. Help me to use words that honor and glorify you. And Lord, I'm grateful for these men and women who are giving of themselves to be our leaders. And I just pray for them tonight. You'll give them great wisdom. Lord, there are issues before us that are important. There's celebrations before us that are important. So I just ask your spirit to be with us tonight, that we rejoice in these celebrations, but have wisdom and peace and patience, and just be led by you as we seek answers and seek direction. Again, thank you for these proceedings. Thank you for your presence with us. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen. Amen.
Potomac.
Hi, good evening. We were supposed to have our PBIS Leadership Club with us today. Our kids didn't make it. We're not sure if they are delayed or not, so we're going to go ahead and start that for us. So, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Did you want to tell us anything about the leadership team in Potomac?
I'm Shane Pacelli. I'm the vice president. This is
Candace Poles, president of the PBIS Leadership Club.
PBIS stands for Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports. And our club that we meet 2 Mondays a month. We have 3 students and we teach them positive behavior traits, character traits. And the twice a month that we meet, we have them bag up the prizes that students receive when they purchase items on our PBIS Hawk store, and they earn these points by having these positive character traits, doing the right thing, and stuff like that.
Good, wonderful. Any questions from the board? What's your most enjoyable part of leading this and doing this? Either one of you.
So I love watching the kids grow and taking ownership of their own mistakes, because the kids that we're picking for the leadership club are kids who might have some behaviors and stuff like that, to try to curve them to grow and become a better person. So it's really awesome watching these kids take ownership of that and really enjoy the club and show up every day. Sorry you guys didn't get to meet them today.
That's all right. Maybe another time.
So along with that, our motto at Potomac is SOAR, self-control, ownership, acceptance, and respect. And each week that we meet, we talk about one of those 4 aspects, and we talk to them and say, where did you show self-control? Where did you show ownership? And they know that each week we meet, they have to have an answer ready for us, so that they're focused on not just in school, but outside of school. Where are they soaring? So we have that. It's a fun discussion that we have every week, every other week that we meet.
Good. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's give him a hand. All right, now we have a couple of recognitions, the VSBA Art Contest.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. This evening I have the honor of presenting our Art Award recipients. Every year, the Virginia School Board Association hosts an annual art competition. All of the school board members and myself had the opportunity. This year was at Westmoreland High School. We went down and we put our art up against many of the entries across the region. And as is typical for King George County, we have a number of wonderful artists in our community. And this evening, we have the opportunity to recognize many of those artists. So when I call your name, if you were able to make it this evening, if you could come up front, get your award, and I'll also give you back your piece of art. And if you could just remain standing up front, we'd like to take a picture with the board this evening, okay? All right, so the first recipient is Kinsley Crilly. Please come forward if you're here. Let's give her a hand. I hope I get this name right. The second recipient is Salem Talavera. Did I say it right? Help me. Okay, it's Salem Tolliver. Thank you so much. Next, we have Dylan Batras Arden. Please come forward if you're here. Brian Hicks. Larryina Campos, excuse me. Ella Shrewsbury. William Rinko. Shelby Yee. All of those individuals received a recognition award. And then this year we did have a second place recipient. Riley Williams, please come forward. Let's give all these individuals another big round of applause. Right. Thank you.
Next presentation we have is the PTA Outstanding Educator Awards.
Good evening, Chairman Bush, Dr. Boyd, and all esteemed members of the school board. My name is Terry Rinko, and I am the proud president of the County Council of PTAs, and I'm here before you tonight with all of our building level presidents. Each year at this time, we hold a Outstanding Educator nomination process, and that's through all 6 of our buildings, all 6 of our school buildings, from the preschool all the way up to the high school. And this year we had over 101 nominations total of teachers whom parents, faculty, and students felt made a particular impact. We lovingly call this award, the Outstanding Educator Award, our Teacher Impact Award. 101 nominations. Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
So at this time, we'd like to, starting with our King George Preschool, have our building level president come up, introduce herself, and share with you who this year's recipient was. Thank you so much.
My name is Miriam Nimi, and I serve as the PTA president at King George County Preschool. This year, our recipient is Miss Jennifer Hanks. Miss Jennifer is an amazing teacher who was made to teach young students. She is positive, loving, and patient with all of her students. She believes in all of her students and makes it known, making her students feel comfortable and confident in the classroom. She has a gift for working with students who have special needs, giving them love, patience, and strategies. Miss Jennifer also advocates for her students, ensuring they receive the services to help them grow. Miss Jennifer embodies the King George County vision as an educator who's providing opportunities for her students to envision, achieve, and thrive. Congratulations, Miss Jennifer.
And next we have Potomac Elementary.
Good evening. I'm Mary Ann Donaldson, the PTA president at Potomac Elementary. And our outstanding educator has been teaching at Potomac for 9 years. She has become an anchor and a core staff member at the School for All. And I would like to read you tonight the nomination that earned her this award. I knew this was who my daughter needed to be her teacher this year. She needed someone who would have structure in the classroom, be firm in rules and expectations, but also understand that these are first graders and they need love and compassion. Mrs. Poles is an amazing teacher. She has had a rough year personally, but despite that, she has worked with our family to help us dig in and determine what was causing our daughter's loss of learning each year since preschool. We have felt for the last few years that we've taken one step forward and 2 steps back each year, and we were starting to really be worried about her future. However, after meeting early in the year, she realized that we were willing to dig in and figure out the problem and put in the extra work with outside resources to support what she was doing in the classroom. And now our daughter is on the road to catching up to where she needs to be. Mrs. Poles has been exactly what she needed this year, and it's just one of many stories that we could tell you about her during her 9 years at Potomac Elementary. Mrs. Poles, as you saw tonight, runs the school PBIS program, which rewards students for positive behavior and has taken many a pie in the face to make our students feel rewarded, appreciated, and to make them smile. She jumps in and acts like a kid, even dressing up as Elf on the Shelf last year at school, which brought many smiles, laughter, and delight to our children and creates fun when the time is right and she is loved by everyone who comes in contact with her. Mrs. Poles, you deserve this award, and the Potomac Elementary PTA is very proud to award this Golden Apple to you this year.
And I'll be standing in for our King George Elementary School PTA President, Amy Steyer. King George Elementary School is proud to recognize Miss Addison Hennihan, who has been an advocate for students diversifying learning this year. Her positive energy has motivated students to learn and progress. She goes above and beyond to give students fun and provide students a fun and inspirational atmosphere for learning, remembering always to keep her parents well informed. And at this time, it is my pleasure to introduce you to and award this Golden Apple to Miss Addison Hennihan. Next will be Sealston Elementary's PTA President.
Hi, I'm Kimber Green, president of Sealston Elementary School PTA. I am delighted to be here this evening to introduce to you an amazing teacher that we have. Miss Metz is our Educator of the Year at Sealstead Elementary School. And I want to show you what the apple looks like because we keep handing out boxes. And I want everybody to see this amazing and amazingly heavy award. If Miss Metz would like to come up here, please. Miss Metz is an amazing teacher. If you haven't had a chance to meet her, you absolutely need to make it a priority in your life. She is somebody fabulous, and we are so lucky to have her at Sealstead Elementary School. She makes a positive impact every day on students and families and teachers, her coworkers, and the PTA. We love having her at Sealstead, and we love everything that she does to make every student feel included in everything she does. Thank you so much for all that you do.
Next, we'll have King George Middle School PTA.
Hello, I'm Melissa Diorda. I'm King George Middle School President PTA. And this year, our outstanding educator is Samantha Phillips. She had 7 nominations. The first one is the one that stuck out the most to me. It says, "This teacher has made math a fun and learning environment. She has a way of engaging kids, making things fun, and a place where kids want to be. With 6th grade being a hard adjustment for many coming from elementary school, which is familiar to them in a mixing bowl of all kinds of kids and expectations, it can be new and scary. She has been a light to many, not only for math, but in general, where kids want to be and learn." Another one said, "Use what you already know and you're golden." This is my favorite quote from her. Her class is the one I am always waiting for throughout the day. It is such a fun and laid back class, which I am always ready to learn in. She has such a bubbly personality and is always willing to listen if you need to talk to someone. I am so grateful that I got her as my teacher this year and know she will impact even more kids in the future. She is a true role model. So I am proud to present this to Samantha Phillips. And I
Next, we have King George High School PTA.
Hello, I'm Melissa Lamb, and I'm president of the King George High School PTSA. Our winner is Miss Amanda Stepp. Amanda Stepp interacts with her students with passion. She helps each student in multiple different ways. She is compassionate, thoughtful, and makes learning fun and interactive. She goes above and beyond for her students and other faculty members. She allows students to show themselves for who they are. While she is a great teacher, she is a stern teacher who wants what is best for her students. She hosts the HOSA group, which allows high school students to learn about their futures in the medical field while having fun doing fundraisers, field trips, and helping seniors at Heritage Hall. Ms. Stepp was my teacher for 2 semesters, and at the beginning of the year, I was a struggling student who not only struggled in high school, but with mental health issues. Ms. Stepp made me an outgoing student who learns how to focus on what I wanted. She helped me succeed and find that there is a light at the end of a tunnel. Ms. Stepp not only deserves to be recognized for her amazing work, but for her commitment and contribution to each student that walks through her classroom door. She is one of a kind. Ms. Stepp. What's in the box?
Congratulations to all of those nominated for this year's Outstanding Educator, and bravo to this year's winners. Thank you very much.
Those were our recognitions. I'm sorry, I think I used the word presentations. Next, we have public employee comment. And we have Pastor Sherman Davis. from Tabernacle.
That's Tabernacle Baptist. Anyway, thank you. I am Pastor Davis, Tabernacle Baptist Church. If I live to see the 19th of next month, I'll be their pastor for 47 years. And I want to invite each of you. We're going to have a celebration that day, so I invite you to our homecoming celebration. And of course, I want to congratulate all these teachers and students, all the fine job that they did. And it's always to be wonderful to know that you got folks who serve because they love kids. And so I'm going to read to you tonight and try to encourage you from the Word of God. And then I'll get out of your way. It's in Psalm chapter number 1. The Bible says, "Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, or standeth in the way of sinners, or sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. He shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. The ungodly are not so, but are like a chaff which the wind driveth away. Therefore the ungodly shall not stand in the judgment, or sinners in the congregation of the righteous. The Lord knoweth the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish." And so the Word of God is always an honor and a privilege to be able to read. I praise the Lord for the opportunity to be able to do this. I can see us get back to the old-fashioned way that we start things out, and I want to thank this school board, of course, Dr. Boyd and our student rep tonight for being here. And I'm going to pray for you, as I've always do. Every one of you on our prayer list at church, and on Wednesday nights we have prayer meeting. We pray for each of you by name, and we just know that you have an awesome responsibility, and to think about what you do and the decisions you have to make. So you're certainly worthy of our prayers, and so we thank God for you, and God bless, and good night. And I only did it 1 minute in.
Thank you, Pastor Davis. You sure you don't want to say any more? Small sermon for 1 minute?
He starts again, he won't stop.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. He did, he mowed my grass.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, any changes to the agenda? Anybody?
I just have one small change on page 3 of the agenda, the Title I meeting. It says April 9th, that should be April 11th. Just want to make sure everyone knows under the upcoming advisory committee meetings. So April 11th instead of April 9th.
All right, now we have a presentation, King George High School Student to Student Month of the Military Child.
We have Miss Lolita Gunther with us this evening to present.
Actually, I don't know what happened to our student-to-student representative from King George High School, and I sent Miss Brown, who is the advisor of the group, to find out what had happened. But anyway, I'm here to explain what S2S is, or student-to-student. Student-to-student is a leadership club that is actually, Miss Brown is the advisor, and these are a group of children who are ready to help the students to transition from mostly the military children from other schools to King George High School. They do provide orientation, and actually initially this was a initiative by Military Child Education Coalition, which is MSEC, as you can see on that slide. And of course, it helps children to ease up or help them to get their social and emotional anxieties as they transition to new school. So as you can see here, there is a National Military Youth of the Year that we encourage these particular leaders and members of the student-to-student to be active in this club so that we can be able to nominate them for the National Military Youth of the Year that is being sponsored by Boys and Girls Club at the Dahlgren Youth Center. And there is a partnerships between the Dahlgren Youth Center and the King George High School. So whatever events that we have at Dahlgren, they participate, just like what you've seen here. Miss Brown and the president of Student to Student, Amira Tate, attended our trunk or treat in last year. So, and also we have like locked in that these students participated at Dahlgren School. And also they have some events that they do at King George High School, the Candy Graham fundraiser, the military care package, wherein they collect some of the materials that the military needs as they duty station. They have like difficulty to get, so we send the military care packages. And the last time that they had that military care package, we are actually partners with another organization in Fredericksburg. And just like I mentioned, the students attended the pizza and PJ's movie night at the Dahlgren Youth Center. And there was also a training, a safe driving course that was the grant came from the UPS. They gave us money to initiate these particular courses, and the students participated with it. And part of also of the Spirit Week, since this month, April's month of the military child, the student-to-student group have a Spirit Week that they celebrated wearing purple on the 17th, which is the Virginia Department of initiative to wear purple on the 17th. So, and also there are Naval District Washington, which is my big organization in this National Capital Region, celebrates it on the 19th. So if you want to, you can wear purple the whole week rather than just 2 days, 17th and 19th. That's what my intention, just to wear purple the whole week. So do you have any questions about the group?
Board members, any questions? How long has this been in existence here in King George Schools?
Actually, since 2009, wherein we sent 2 students from King George High School to Texas for training, and the Navy paid for it. 2 students and 1 counselor, and those students, of course, like trained the other younger students. So that's why this is in existence. Another thing that I would like to share is the Virginia Department of Ed Purple Star designation for schools that are military friendly. And I really am working with, where is this? Oh, I guess it's not here. She left already. I'm working with the schools, King George High School. One of the requirements to get a Purple Star designation of the school is to have a student, like a similar ambassador club, a student-to-student club, and also the point of contact, the military point of contact at the school has to have training that are on the website of Virginia Department of Ed, the requirements for training, and having that certification and Turnitin application. Turnitin is open now, April 1st up to September. And then the Military Interstate Compact of Virginia, that they do quarterly meeting, and they have reviewed all of these applications of the school, and they approve all the applications around October timeframe, and they inform the schools about that. So I would like, I'm here to assist the school, mostly right now, King George High School, who has actually, Miss Brown mentioned that she has completed all the requirements, already, training requirements, and I'm here to help whatever other requirements are needed for King George High School to be a Purple Star designated school for military students. So yeah, I can continue to work with that. And I'm also working with Potomac Elementary School. We have another, what we call Anchored for Life, which is a transition group, a leadership group of children as well. And we fund that. The Navy also pays for that as a training for the staff and the students.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Do you say are some of our schools Purple Star School or none? Or
none right now at King George County School. That's why I would really like to have King George High School to be the first one to have a designated school for King George County School. So yeah, I would like to have because there are other, like Stafford County, just close by. It's actually all of the schools there have Purple Star designation.
Just want to say thank you for doing this. Many of us on the board here have military backgrounds and children transitioning from different locations and things like that. Me personally, I did. And it was neat how it worked out because, and then the deployments that involve parents leaving, you know, my oldest son, Braden, had Miss Parker when his dad deployed. And he struggled in first grade, and she was military, and she was able to help him with that, with just coping with it. And so it was another thing our teachers take on sometimes, but she did a good job. So thank you for doing this, because kids do take a toll when they're moving around or when parents are leaving and stuff like that. So thank you.
And I'm here to assist. And that Anchored for Life organization, actually, if the school is trained in that particular program, we provide the kits for welcome kit, the deployment kits, getting together kit, where we present the students actually are being trained how to present it to another child who is experiencing that transition issue. So the leadership for that child who's a member of Anchored for Life and helping the other child, of course, with the assistance of the advisor.
And you're saying that Dahlgren, the Navy pays for this program to train our teachers in King George?
Yeah, if the school, I actually talked to Dr. Brown at Potomac Elementary School before this. We just couldn't secure someone who is willing to be advisor of the group. And then, yeah, I will still continue to follow up with Dr. Brown and see if their school is interested with that program. And then I will request the grant from the Navy, our Naval District Washington, because we always have openings, and every year they visit the list of funding for that particular program, because children need it, and we see the need. That's why we really sell this to the school system.
It's good. Thank you very much. I guess you can already tell the four of us, we've all been in the military.
Yeah.
So this board is very sympathetic
For your
towards anything
service, yeah.
military.
And again, month of the military child is April. That's why I requested for the student to come and present, so that you guys will be aware that those children need to be recognized. And one of the projects that Ms. Brown has mentioned to me is having the kids, the elementary kids, given the star, I believe it's a star, and put their names on it if they are active military children.
Good.
And they will have a bulletin board, like shooting stars of all of the names of those children. And I'm just sorry that I don't know where they're at. And I sent a text to Miss Brown, but I don't know. Yeah, and I left her a voice message. Probably they've forgotten. Too many things going on.
I'm curious, is there anything special that's in this program that might be done for those that are deployed that might be injured or even not come back? Is there anything that's part of this program to especially help those families?
Actually, this program is for kids, but
Well, I meant for the children who have suffered their parents.
Yes, this particular program, the children, the leaders, we call them leaders, are trained on how to help those children who are suffering in that kind of situation.
All right, excellent, very good. Well, thank you very much.
One more question, if I may.
Another question.
Just since you mentioned none of the schools are Purple Star at the moment, could you just take a minute to generally describe the gap between where we're at and where our school would have to be a Purple Star school?
And one of the things that I mentioned to Ms. Fisher is the website. We have to have a designated website that says for military families, here are the things you need to do to register, and these are the graduation requirement. I sent all of those information to her. And how about anything that is going on in King George County, here's the link, Parks and Recs and stuff like that. Yeah, so having that, because I haven't seen it yet, but I've been communicating with Ms. Fisher. Ms. Fisher is aware of it, that we need to have something like that before we can turn in any application to have our school designated as a Purple Star school.
Good. Well done. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Now we go into closed session. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
Yes. Pursuant to State Code Section 2.2-3712A of the Code of Virginia, I move that the board convene in a closed meeting to review hires, resignations, and retirements as permitted under 2.2-37111 of the Code of Virginia.
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are now in closed session.
charge of just special education. It's not a teacher assistant. You're going to really dedicate that person's job to or there was the most it'll be more efficient. Yes.
Okay, do I have a motion to return to open session?
I move that King George County School Board return to open session and certify pursuant to State Code Section 2.2-3712D, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements under this chapter, and such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which in the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting by the public body.
Second, certify.
Second, so certified.
Also certify. All those in favor of returning to open session, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We're now in open session. All right, do we have a motion to approve the personnel as presented?
I make a motion that we approve the personnel as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. They're approved. It's so funny on this comments here, I have adjournment, but since we changed the order, we're not doing that. All right. Now we have the consent agenda, which are the minutes. If board members, if you could try to pull that up. All right, we have 4 sets here, January 29th, February 12th, February 26th, and the special meeting, public hearing, and then also the work session of February 26th.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I perhaps could have mentioned during the change of the agenda, but I do need to ask to pull the first one out for some amendments, or corrections.
Pull the January 29th one out?
Right.
All right, any other changes? I went to February 12th, 26th, the 2 and 26th. Any problems with those? All right, do I have a motion to only approve the February 12th work session on the 26th and the regular meeting, budget meeting on the 26th?
I move that we approve the minutes for February 12th regular meeting, the February 26th public hearing on the budget / regular meeting, as well as the special meeting work session on February 26th.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Those 3 sets of minutes are approved. Now, Mr. Rolls, the January 29th minutes, go ahead.
Okay, so if you're looking at the packet, it's page 12 of the packet, but the first page of the minutes for January 29th, and it's simply just properly identifying who gave the invocation and where he's from. Actually, you already sent the details to Dr. Boyd, and Mrs. Bushrod also has it to make the change, but just to say it here, it was Stephen Haywood from Mars Hill Acts Chapter 17 Youth and Family Outreach that came and spoke. It was just a bit mangled as it's written here.
So it's just a change of the name.
The name and his organization.
Any further discussion about that? Okay, do I have a motion to accept those minutes with that amendment?
I move that we approve the minutes from January 29th regular meeting as amended.
I second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. It's approved. The January 29th minutes are approved. All right, next we have the action items, and the first one is the acceptance of funds for the Early Childhood Provisionally Licensed Teacher Incentive Grant.
Yes, Mr. Chair, in your packet, you will have a King George Board agenda item. This is for the Early Childhood Provisionally Licensed Teacher Incentive Grant. The Virginia Department of Education has awarded King George County Schools a total of $6,244.80 for this grant. The school board needs to approve the acceptance of these funds before the money can be used. My recommendation this evening is to accept these funds for the Early Childhood Provisionally Licensed Teacher Incentive Grant in the amount of $6,244.80.
This is an action item, but it could still be discussed first. Otherwise, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the early childhood provisional license teacher incentive grant in the amount of $6,244,080.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there further discussion?
Oh, just clarify, I don't know if I quite heard that right, but it's $6,244.80. That's all.
I'm sorry, say it again, Mr. Rolls.
I just clarified the amount.
Verifying again, the $6,244.80, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Motion carries. The grant is accepted. All right, the next one. Oh, I need my glasses, sorry. The next one is the policy manual updates. These we discussed last time, so let's look at them one at a time. The first one is the public participation at school board meetings. If we'd open that one up. We discussed this last time, so it is up for an action item, a consent item. So if you would look at the change, I believe we discussed this, and if you'll notice, some things are crossed out, and the underlying part of that says public comment is limited to parent or guardian, employee, student, student's family, or resident of King George. Do I have a motion since we've discussed this last time?
If we could, I would like to discuss a bit further. It might be easier than trying to do an amendment.
Before the motion?
If I could.
All right, go ahead.
I just wondered, we were talking about how detailed we got last time, and it does say student's family or resident of King George County. And I guess my going and thinking was that overwhelmingly the intent is for residents to be able to come and give comment. But then we make the exception that if for whatever reason there's a parent or a guardian, an employee or a student who is not a resident, that they could also give comment.
Correct.
I would maybe include grandparents as well, but then the question is when we say student's family, so do we want non-resident family to be able to come in from outside the county and give comment, even if their parents and grandparents decline to do so? I mean, how distant?
I would think student's family would include grandparents, parents, whether they live in the county or not.
It does. But my point is, so then like, you know, distant cousin, aunt, uncle, I mean, if they're able to come in from out of state, if their parents or grandparents decline to give comments. I'm just wondering if parents and grandparents isn't just sufficient, and guardian.
I have an opinion on that too, but I'll ask the other two board members. Any opinion on this?
What do you propose should be there? You said grandparents?
Yeah, I think it maybe just, right now it says parent or guardian, maybe just add grandparents and leave it at that, and not make it a wide open student family.
How about if you used immediate family?
Well, personally, I would not have a problem. I guess I think about certain situations that I've been involved with over the years. And sometimes there's an uncle or an aunt that is just as close as not closer to the student and is very involved with their education. And I like the idea of the student's family, which would include uncles, aunts. I don't know about cousins, but I personally would like to leave that because I have known situations where uncles and aunts were much more involved, and in some cases, even more involved than the parents. So I guess I would like to leave it to just say student's family. That's just an opinion. So I'm just one opinion. Mr. Rolls?
It's not a super important point, but I mean, I think if in that situation, you'd think that they would talk to the parents and the parents would be more than willing to offer comment. Maybe not.
I mean,
Ms. Davis, did you have a thought?
though I was raised by my aunt, so Um,
In that case, I guess the county's your guardian, probably, right?
I think we're wasting time right now. And it should be approved as is.
Yeah, I would like to go ahead and prove it as it is because I have seen where aunts and uncles are very deeply involved. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve policy number BDDH/KD as is, as the changes presented.
I have a second.
Oh, second.
All right, Ms. Davis seconds it. Now further discussion? Mr. Rose, I want you to understand, I do understand what you're saying. I really do, and it makes sense at some level. I guess you weigh those kinds of two things. It's not that big a deal, but I just have seen other family members such as aunts and uncles be very involved.
I would agree that the chance of abuse is probably very small.
Yes, I would agree. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. All right, the next one is BDDL, electronic participation in committee meetings from a remote location.
So again, this policy from last time, this is the clean version that's in your packet. There was questions about the first paragraph, and I think we were going to speak with Elizabeth Ewing and see if there was any question about maybe some further meaning on that first paragraph. And I think that was the only thing that was that we hesitated on.
I believe, Mr. Rolls, you were going to contact Ms. Ewing about that?
Right, but then I read it again, not quite as late at night, and it made sense. So.
Okay, all right. So do I have a motion?
I move that we approve policy BDDL as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? No. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes aye. Motion carries. All right, next one, JFCK, cellular phones and personal communication devices.
So we've made the suggested revisions from last time. This is policy JFCK. The only thing that we still had question on is the boldface print there that is in the second to final and the final paragraph on the regulated and or prohibited section. You can see in bold there. And then the final part there, it says, unless use inside school board buildings is specifically permitted by school administration.
So you're not proposing it be bold in the final version, it's just bold because you want to.
Correct, yes.
I think he was just showing what we discussed.
And I think we've captured the other suggested changes. I know at the last meeting, those particular points were still up in the air.
I know that Mr. Frank had presented one. So Mr. Frank, I would defer to you. What do you think about this?
Well, I don't think what we have here changes anything that is in policy right now because we have the word regulated in there and that opens it up for principals, administrations, and teachers pretty much do what they want to do. And it's the same thing down in the last paragraph where it talks about the bold lines in there. Unless use inside the school board buildings is specifically permitted by school administration. It's pretty much leaving us where we are right now. In my understanding, as a board, we are to make the policy, and then the administrators are to carry out that policy. I did get some correspondence from teachers who said, you make the policy, we have to follow it. And that's, that's where I'm going with this. I know that Ms. Davis has done a lot of research in the last couple of weeks on this also,
So Dr. Boyd, you're the one that's meeting with the teachers and the committees, and you're hearing a lot of, we're meeting separately, but you're meeting in the schools. Why do you feel it should stay kind of, to me, it feels like it's the same.
I understand that point. I do, and I think what we're trying to do is find find a way that is in consideration of all of our stakeholders. I think, sure, I think we could write this policy either way. I think we can be fully restrictive. I think or we could also write a policy that provides some level of flexibility. If you consider the different stakeholder groups that are in play here, I think parents will have something to say about, at some point, some level of access to their students. That's the world we live in right now. And I think when we talk about that, many people revert to, well, we'll do what we used to do as far as allowing our students or their child to make contact with them. Well, what we used to do is had a payphone out in front of the school. Or what we used to do is have our student go to the office to make a phone call. I think the world has changed so much right now that would be a very number one, payphone's gone, but number two, it'd be a very challenging thing. In the high school alone with 1,500 students, with the expectation that parents have and students have with communication right now, I think that would be a challenging thing to do. So I'm just trying to come up with a concept or come up with an idea that's in consideration of all of our stakeholders. I think if you look at our other stakeholders, you're right. If we come up with a policy, it is our staff's responsibility to enforce that policy. You'll hear many of our administrators and many of our teachers right now say that this cell phone is very much like an addiction. And to go completely cold turkey on that type of addiction is, I know that's what we want to do, but let's be realistic. That's going to be an extremely challenging endeavor. We do have the opportunity to go to Hopewell. We're going to go check out Hopewell and check out their cell phone policy, and I think that'll be enlightening, and that'll give us an idea of maybe how that's working in that location. Everyone I've spoken to, all the different stakeholder groups, especially when it comes to the secondary level and the frequency or the fluidity that we have in our lives right now because of that cell phone and the way that things change, the after school schedule, the way it changes. I think to go entirely cold turkey on that would be a challenging thing for our community. And I think when you look at policies, there's many people, in fact, most people at this point, that are entirely comfortable with taking it entirely away, prohibited from instructional time. I think where you still get people a little bit on the fence is providing some level of opportunity to make that connection or access with whoever it need to be. It's usually parents. So
okay, yes. I did a lot of research on our local different schools around us, different localities: Hopewell, Charlottesville, Danville, Rockingham, and then there's Loudoun County and Stafford County, who really isn't doing anything right now with the cell phone. It's kind of as is. But what I'm seeing is that they tried this way and now they're going to the Yonder Pocket pouches, because allowing them to the expectation that the child is gonna not look at their phone in class and all wasn't working. So they had to move the next step. And then if you look at how it's going well. Like I was reading, and the schools are doing well as far as putting the information out there so that we can, other school divisions, because they know it's statewide, probably nationwide. So they're putting out there all the issues that they're having, the good and the bad, and you can actually read those from on their websites and stuff. So one of the things, I just want to read it because I took the time to study and I just want to read it. There have been some issues, this is Rockingham. There have been some issues where kids are looking at inappropriate things on their cell phones and sharing inappropriate material. And it talks about the issues we already know about. Because they are allowed to use them during non-instructional times, it sometimes bleeds over into classroom time. So we say out of classroom, you can use it in the cafeteria or whatever, but they're still finding, and this was a common thing with how we currently have our policy, or the one we're trying to implement, is that it's still happening. And so it's leading already to prohibit it at all. And a lot of high schools are doing it. That does sound scary, but a lot of high schools are doing it. We can't forget we have cell phones, and we have phones in every classroom. Not all schools have that, but we do. I understand there's an issue with emailing parents because they are not on the email roster, whatever you call it. But they can call in the schools. They call the office. They can call the classrooms. I mean, is there an issue with that? And then the other thing, like Hopewell, before they went to no schools at all, no cell phones at all, they tried asking the kids to keep their phones in their lockers or out of sight, but that didn't seem to work. Meanwhile, the distraction and discipline issues stemming from the cell phone grew. It really just became overwhelming. I think, to my personal opinion, to have each teacher or admin regulated, it's going to be so overwhelming with 1,400 kids at the high school alone. How do you keep up with that?
I can say something, a couple of things I'd like to say.
I was going to say, and go ahead. I just to her point though, I think regardless of what we decide to do, this policy is going to be more restrictive. Regardless, we're drawing a new line in the sand. No matter what we do, there is going to be a brand new and very intense demand on our administrative team, on our teaching staff, whether it's yonder bags that kids are figuring out how to work with and do things with, or whether it's a more restrictive cell phone policy or a prohibited cell phone policy. There is going to still be a very high demand on our staff. I think right now, and that's not a deterrent in doing anything, I think many of our teachers and many of our staff are ready to take on that challenge. But I don't think there's a plan out there that's going to alleviate this new demand that our staff will have in trying to regulate this expectation.
Did you still want to read some more?
I just have a little bit.
Go ahead.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine.
So to me, it seems like if we start off with a stricter policy and maybe stricter consequences, it takes that load off the teachers. It just seems easier than to kind of be open and to interpret the policy the way they choose to. It just seems more complicated rather than saying no schools during the day. I mean, no cell phones during the school day. But the important thing is if we're going to do something like that, something I read, I'm just going to read it how I copied and pasted it. The far better approach is to make sure you create a culture in your school of healthy tech use. And there are schools all over the place that have done it, and it's great and it works. But schools that don't do it and don't take the time to create a healthy tech culture and just want to ban tech, and it just harms kids. This is the CEO of the International Society of Technology and Education. He said, schools need to be looking at how to teach students the do's of technology as well as the don'ts, and not to tackle the issue by avoiding it. I think, and then something I thought of maybe is we need to educate the children on why we're making this policy, but not just a one-time paper send out, but like maybe monthly reminding them that the data is showing we're protecting them, we're helping them to be the best that they can be. And so educating is the key in building the culture needed to be successful at this. But I just feel like there's a lot. I feel like saying, hey, we're going to regulate it how we choose to just makes it complicated.
In order, just some structural things talking about this, let's kind of limit it to 2 times each. You spoke, You spoke once, no, that's fine. Ed has spoke just once. Dr. Boyd has spoken. Mr. Rolls has not. Then I'll speak. So Mr. Rolls, go ahead.
I'll just first ask a question. So, Mrs. Davis, you're reading that source and you're saying that teach them to use tech well, which would seem to be an argument for letting them use the cell phones to a small extent, to a limited extent, but I don't think that's what you're saying. So could you clarify?
I mean, they use Chromebooks and that's technology. I mean, there's other technology things that they use. But I do think, like Dr. Boyd said, it is an addiction. I mean, we all deal with it, even as adults we didn't grow up with cell phones in our face, and we're still addicted to it, So I do understand that we need to be careful and we need to help these children. But I feel like if we as adults, and the data shows that this is what's best for them, they will learn to appreciate it, and then we educate them. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so then question for Dr. Boyd. So a similar concern that Mr. Frank also expressed already is that you read this and there certainly is plenty of space if people want to just say, well, I just want to keep doing what I'm doing. This policy doesn't necessarily tell them that they can't. So how do you see this having a positive impact then on what's happening in the schools? What difference is policy going to make as written?
Well, I think what Mr. Bush may say as well is that this policy is going to set parameters. I think what the hope and the intent is that we dive deep into practice and we start to figure out what practices would be appropriate. Even the Yonder bag is a practice. It's not a policy per se. So we start talking about even prohibiting entirely is a practice, or allowing students just to use it during lunchtime or whatever it is that is decided. We're still arming our administrative team. We're arming our instructional staff with a policy that's coming from the school board that says, this is how we feel about cell phones. This is our rationale on the front end of it. And this is where we believe it belongs or doesn't belong in public education. Similar to what the General Assembly has done this year for school boards, we would be doing something similar for our staff. And then from there, given the directives that I think we have from the school board, we would create much more restrictive practices when we employ it.
All right, so then reading this now as reworded, it's practically the exact same thing as the Virginia Beach cell phone policy, but with the rationale tacked on the front, which I think that's a good addition, given that it's potentially a somewhat controversial subject, just to give the rationale why we're doing this. But I'm curious, we also mentioned Hopewell and going there. Are you familiar with how their policy differs? Is it a more restrictive policy?
They use the Yonder pouches right now.
By policy?
I don't know if it's by policy, it's by practice, most likely.
It's just no cell phones during the day.
Right, yeah, so they use the Yonder pouches. They come in, they put their cell phone in the pouch, they lock it up. Upon leaving, they all scan their pouches on a node, or it kind of looks like a doorknob almost that releases the mechanism on the pouch.
Okay.
And we do have a meeting with, or I do have a Zoom meeting with the gentleman from Hopewell on Thursday, and we hope to be able to set up, I'm going to talk to him about the ins and outs of their program, but hope to be able to set up a meeting or a visit to Hopewell High School with a small team to see if we can watch that plan in practice.
Okay.
I was just asking questions. No, I'd like to make my comment if I could. So with that, when we had a work session last time, or not last time, but early March about this. Prior to that, I had just kind of searched the internet about what other folks had done in Virginia, and so that's what that Virginia Beach came up. So I called a friend in the Virginia Beach School Board, and that's when she sent that link. And but asking her about how it's gone, her comment was that the problem really is consistent enforcement. They do have a problem with that. And of course, this isn't very prescriptive; it's very open. But at the same time, it does kind of seem to emulate a federal system. It's a little decentralized, which in a way that's very American, so like that. But so I guess I would say if we went with this, my desire would be, I think we have to have the intention of following up, and saying, okay, we're passing this as is. You see our intent, and we need to see that our intent is followed. And if we see this is working well, then great, we can stick with it. If it's not, then expect it to be further school board attention and scrutiny. So I just want to, if we pass it, I want to do it with some sort of plan for follow-up to see how it's working down the road.
I think I'll have a comment, and then we'll have everybody have their last comment, and then I'll have the last one also. I see this as three things, really. I would love to do exactly what you're saying. That would be my desire. I think in this particular situation, the policy will only be effective if the practice is something that will allow the policy to be effective. I don't, that sounds like doublespeak, but it's really not. In other words, let's just say that these bags, I know they're not perfect, and we're going to look at a situation to see how well they do work. But let's just assume for a moment they absolutely 99% or whatever, very high percentage, they work. Well, I would have no problem passing a policy that said they're prohibited. You see, I think in this situation I don't want to pass a policy that is going to have a negative impact in the way the administrators have a relationship and communicate with their teachers. Because if we're putting the onus on the teacher's shoulders, we can pass this policy, say, as it's absolutely prohibitive. And then you have a teacher that even tells their administrators, I'm sorry, Mr. Bush, let's say I'm the principal, I am not, which I had this actually happen, I am not going to fight that battle in my classroom. And literally to the point, it's almost as if this means my job, then that's it, because I have too many battles to fight in the classroom and I'm not going to fight this one. Now, I won't go into what we did. I already talked about it in the past. What I'm saying is, though, is if we could do something that would allow a practice that we know is working, whether it be bags or something else, that will take the onus off of the teachers, that they can, do something that it doesn't require them to fight a battle, as this is something that's a practice, not just simply the policy saying it's prohibited. Now here's the practice in the school. And whether we have a switch that turns everything off, if we can't do that, not legally, or whether we put it in a bag, or whether there's something else that absolutely is totally effective, then I love the idea of saying it's prohibited. So I think in this situation, there's a direct relationship between practice and policy. And what we're trying to do here, I think, is give the administrators the ability to work with the teachers, maybe over a period of time. That's one point. And all this. The second one is this bottom part, I think is a rather easy one, unless used inside the school buildings are specifically permitted by school administration, such as medical needs communication. I mean, as we've all seen and know, like diabetes and so on, now they have these things on their arms and they put their cell phone there and they know instantly what they're, I think this bottom one, I'd like to leave no matter what. Even if we were to make it totally prohibited, I would still think for medical reasons, we could be more specific maybe, for medical reasons that we would leave that. Or you might have a student that has epilepsy and when they know ahead of time, or he knows it, and he presses a button to call his parents and the school, which the school would have to, just making stuff up. But I would say for medical needs, there might be a reason. So I would like to leave that up to the nurses and doctors and the administration of the building, and those few exceptions directly related to medical. So this bottom part, I'd say, is not a problem. It's the top one, the regulated or prohibited. Personally, I don't think we still have enough information on the practices that are successful. I think before we can move forward with this, we've got to see more practices not just reading them, but actually see them. What practices are they doing, especially in those schools that are prohibiting it? Because if we can come up with a practice, I believe, that is somewhat working, then I think it's fantastic. Let's use a practice like that, and then let's pass this policy to say prohibited. But I think until we can be sure there's a practice at that level, I don't see how we can pass the policy to say it's prohibited. So personally, I would like to see us still wait. I would rather be patient with this and make a good decision rather than say, let's go ahead and decide and then change it later. There's pros and cons to that, but that would be my opinion. So again, my opinion would be let's visit Hopewell. Now, I know Dr. Boyd is visiting with the superintendent or assistant superintendent? Deputy, okay. And then actually having a couple of, hopefully they'll allow that, maybe someone from the board, one or two of us, to go with Dr. Boyd and actually visit the school, maybe with a teacher or two. And let's look and see, because if that is working, wow, I know there's a cost factor involved, but then I really think we can do this and it be prohibited. So I personally would like to wait until we gather a little more information. I know we've been talking about this for a couple months, but I still think we're not quite at the point. Okay, last comments for everybody, and then we'll have a motion or no motion. Mr. Frank?
I agree that we should go down to Hopewell and check those out and find out what's going on there. However, if you look at this last paragraph here that's there, the first sentence is the one that's, unless use inside school board buildings is specifically permitted by school administration, period. And then we talk about medical there for students with medical needs. I'm not sure that goes far enough. I think there may be something more that we need there, but we can't take it out of the paragraph above. We can't take the regulated and or prohibited out of there and leave it down in the last paragraph. You know, it's got to be, both paragraphs have to be the same. But we talked about this numerous times. Students are going to meet the standards that we set, no matter how low or how high. And, you know, I think our responsibility here as a board is to set those standards high instead of dropping them down.
Thank you, Mr. Frank. Ms. Davis, last comment?
Can I just ask a question, what you just
You
said?
can, you should let Ms. Davis speak and then you can respond to Mr. Franks.
Oh, he can go first, that's fine.
All right, go ahead.
Just to clarify what you said, so as is right now, are you not thinking you'd want to pass this? I mean,
Oh, no, I don't want to pass this. No, I want to go to what Mr. Bush said. We will go down to Hopewell and see what's going on down there. And, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly there, and then come back and revisit this.
Okay.
And also because I think Ms. Hoover would like to be here. I think she should be here with something this big. She had a medical emergency today. Huh? Okay. One of the things I sent to him today about the medical, I found this off of one of the schools, surrounding schools, and it says any student with a potential medical exemption should have a note from their doctor and their treatment plan already on file with the school nurse of the office. They will be given a Velcro non-magnetized yonder pouch that will allow their medical device to connect with their phone. However, the phone and pouch policy still stands. They should not have their phone out of the pouch unless medically necessary. I think we should be kind of specific about that, or everybody's going to try to abuse that, and the people who need it, it won't be fair. But also, I researched that on the Chromebooks that you can download Kahoot, Poll Everywhere, Nearpod, as long as the Chromebooks are compatible with Android apps. I don't know that part, but it said it was. But that's Google. And then I think if we come up with some good consequences of not obeying the phone policy, like I love the strict one of coming to school early for early, what was it?
Attention.
Before school detention. No kid wants to do that, and no parent's gonna want to have to get up that early. I think that would help nip that in the bud early, or not continue abusing the policy. But yeah, looking up some of that stuff too. Is that gonna be listed on here, what the consequences would be for not obeying the policy?
You're asking me a question. I would think that would go to the administration as to the consequences. I mean, we could write it in policy.
Well, because all of the schools that are looking at their policy,
They had
it shows the
written-
consequences of not obeying the policy.
We can, but we'd have to definitely get the input from the current administration to develop those consequences, but that's not a bad idea.
And I don't want to be afraid, because it is all new, I don't want to be afraid as a school district not to be one of the first few to step up and say, hey, this is not good for children and their learning environment. But I do want to respect and be inspired about it. And I think that's what you're trying to do. But yeah, so I'm not ready to vote on this either.
Mr. Rolls, any further? Last comment?
Yeah, I'll just say that obviously the thinking right now is that we're not ready to vote, and I do think it's good to have Ms. Huber here as well for something this big. But I will say that in general, just keeping it, this isn't overly prescriptive. So I wouldn't, I mean, if there were others that wanted to vote, I probably would have tonight, because I think there's enough flexibility in this that administrators could use it to do what they want. And then, I mean, to use their judgment, knowing that we're focused on it, and that if kids aren't getting more relief from being exposed to cell phones during the school hours, that we'll take further action. I think giving them the chance to innovate and to address our concerns, I think they come up with some pretty good ideas. I mean, probably some schools might do better than others, and then we can say, okay, what they're doing is working maybe better than the others, and then we can go with those. We'd also have a chance to go look at Hopewell, and we can always adopt things there later. I mean, I think just giving our administrators a chance to hear our concerns and try to address them might really be a productive use of time, just to let them have a go at it.
Are you saying possibly that Dr. Boyd should maybe even kind of put this a little bit, obviously we'll go to Hopewell, put this on the administration's back to some degree and say, can you come up with some ideas where you could make it prohibitive?
Well, I mean, passing this policy, we would let them do that. We're saying, okay, they're prohibited. So go use your judgment to do what's best for the kids at your school and at that age level.
I see.
And then we can assess. We can see how it works. And I definitely would want to follow up and see how it's working. If it's not enough, we could,
So make it prohibitive, but let the administrators decide how they would do that.
Yeah, which is exactly what it says.
Dr. Boyd, last comment?
I think it's prudent to wait. We have time. When we originally spoke about this, I think we were talking about over the summer, trying to figure some of these things out. So we're well within time to be able to, right now with 6 weeks left in the school year, we have a window of time where we may be able to see a few Petri dishes, a few examples, Hopewell being one of them. So I think I know it was listed for action tonight, but we have plenty of time to make this decision. Our hope, I think, from the very beginning, which is wise, to roll this out at the beginning of a school year and not try to implement something, halfway downstream. So as far as those comments this evening, I'm certainly agree with.
All right, it sounds like the consensus of the board is we don't act on this right now. Am I hearing that? All right, so we will table this. In fact, what we'll do is you're visiting with the administrator from Hopewell and then possibly come up with a time we could visit. If that can be done before our next board meeting, we might revisit this because then we'll have some more education. And if it can't be done, then we may not put this on the next meeting. I mean, it'd be foolish if we're not going to gather any more information. Why are we postponing it? So hopefully we will learn more things between now and the next couple of weeks, and then we will revisit this. But right now, we're just going to table it. All right, let's move on. All right, next is the budget approval. Dr. Boyd.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So since we last met, we did, and you have a handout that I provided you. It's listed as a motion. Again, we have not presented the school board budget yet to the Board of Supervisors. However, since we last met, we recognized a discrepancy in our revenue forecast. And so what this looks like is, if you look at the second paragraph in the background, our total operating funds did not include our federal grant allocation in the amount of $1,772,726. The good news is that this change did not alter our overall expenditures. The bottom line of our budget is the same at $65,787,120. However, it will alter the amount of our local funds needed to make the budget balance. So the new requested amount, again, nothing in the budget has changed as far as our initiatives or anything of that nature. However, our new requested budget amount from the Board of Supervisors would be $1,728,890.
Okay, this is an action item, but obviously many times if it's sort of a new, and there's been a change, and this is a major change in terms of revenue coming in and having the county to share much more than we originally spoke about. So is there any discussion at this before even a motion?
Yes. So just to clarify, the amount we're asking the Board of Supervisors for is increased by exactly the amount of the missed federal grant allocation.
It's slightly different, but it's mainly because of that misplacement of the allocation. So the difference on the federal allocation, or the difference of the federal allocation is $1,772,726. And then that last line at the bottom there, the difference in the, and again, this is all based on the General Assembly proposed budget, which is also a very important caveat. Today, the governor had his last opportunity to change anything in the General Assembly budget, which that might become a topic of conversation as well. However, the new request from the to the Board of Supervisors will be $1,728,890.
So the discrepancy isn't because I was trying to do anything to offset that. It was just
exactly about where we allocated the federal grant funds.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's no difference in any of our initiatives. Everything that we discussed as far as compensation increase, compression at step 6, healthcare, everything that we discussed in our budget deliberations is all the same. It's just the bottom line has changed. Not in terms of total budget, but in terms of the amount of money needed from the local government to make the budget whole.
Okay. Thank
And again, I know we've talked a lot. We've really tried to make sure that we provided a budget to our Board of Supervisors, and I think we still very much have provided a budget to our Board of Supervisors that is austerious, one that is very considerate of the needs our county has right now. But at the same time, as you and I have all looked at this budget, costs everywhere are going up. And we're not really stretching in terms of trying to bring a lot of new, in this budget, we're really not stretching and bringing a lot of new concepts, ideas, and things of that nature because we know where the county and the state budget currently stands. It's just increased costs in things that we've discussed, like the Literacy Act, which is really kind of an unfunded mandate. We're required to get new materials. We're required to get new staff positions. Those things we just can't avoid. The increased cost of some of the special education services, the increased cost of fuel and utilities, all of those things have gone up in cost, even if we continue to provide the same services. So again, we've tried to be very understanding and very cautious as to where our current budget is. However, now that the request that we have on the local government is more than we originally expected. Now, over the years, this is certainly a number that's much lower than it has been in the past. It's been sometimes up in the $6-7 million in terms of request. So this is still very much a conservative number in terms of historically a request to the Board of Supervisors. But it is $1.7 million at this point.
Anyone else? All right, this is quite a difference from what it was when we first, the budget was first presented to us and we did approve it. So we're reverting back to it. But as Dr. Boyd said, it's really no change in the total amount. It's a change that happened because of the revenue. I'd like to ask, what was, and I didn't get it out, I didn't look it up, I apologize. Dr. Boyd, last year, what we needed the county to share with us last year? This year it's 1.72. What was it last year?
Sherry, do you have that available? Yeah.
Last year, the county provided us $24,272,000, and
Do you know how much it was additional?
this year is from the previous
Well,
year.
what we
the previous
requested-
year, it was an additional. I think it was like 3.7 million.
That's what I thought. I thought it was three
It's like-
something. All right.
I think it was like 3.
So this is less than half of what we did last year. And the year, I'm sorry, I'm going back, but I can see in a discussion with the Board of Supervisors, it'd be valuable for them to see things like last couple of years, and this is still significantly less than we asked for last year. And so now I'm going back 2 years.
We don't have 2 years.
Don't have that.
I have 2 years.
But in terms of that, I know you're going back historically. I would say too that, right now, from what I've gathered, the county right now is asking for about $4.5 million additional in their operating budget.
Right.
The remainder of the county is about 250 total employees, from what I've been able to gather. That's $4.5 million additional. We're 715 employees here in King George County. We serve 4,400 students. We're by far the largest organization in county government, almost by threefold compared to the rest of the county. The rest of the county is upwards of $4.5 million. And so we've tried to be conservative, and we're at about 1.7 with probably about 3 times as many resources. So I think it's a conservative estimate. And it's one, again, if you comb through this budget, it's one that we've been very conscious of when we've tried to craft this budget.
And you mentioned those things before, and yeah, it's absolutely true. I don't think there was any disagreement with the board. Any further discussion, or are we ready for a motion with this? Because basically it's the same amount that it was within just a small difference.
Okay. Well, that's an interesting point. So we have roughly over half the budget. We're asking for an extra 1.7. They have less than half, and they're asking for over 4.
4 point.
Correct.
That's right.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and it's another one of those leverage things when we talk to them. And
I was just going to make a motion.
okay. Well, before you motion, someone may know this. I believe the Board of Supervisors is having a work session on Wednesday for the budget. Am I mistaken?
I should know, but I have a whole lot.
No, it's all right. Does anybody know?
Yes, I know. It's on Wednesday at 2 o'clock. The King George County Board of Supervisors is having a budget work session here.
Okay, Wednesday is also the day for the special ed thing, and also, okay, there's a lot going on this week. All right, it might be valuable if one of us could attend that work session, just to listen. All right, do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the King George County Schools FY25 proposed budget in the amount of $65,787,120 as presented on February 12th, 24, amended on March 25th, 24, and amended on April 8th, 2024.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. The new amended budget is approved. All right, now next in the discussion items, we go to the Carl D. Perkins, our plan.
So we have Ms. Christine Hill tonight. I think she has a few things that she'd like to say about the Carl D. Perkins. And then we do have a school board agenda item and possibly a proposed motion this evening.
Good evening, Chairman Bush and school board members, Dr. Boyd, and our student representative. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have in regards to the Carl D. Perkins 5 formula grant. The grant is based on allocations awarded by the state and is determined through a predetermined formula. Formulas are awarded or sometimes referred to as state administered grants. And some of our other formula grants, you'll hear about one of them a little bit later, called the IDEA grant, or the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Title I is another one, Title II, Title III, and those will be coming to you soon in the next couple weeks. And approving the grant basically means that you are approving the way we are allocating our funds, and you are certifying that the division will adhere to the requirements and the regulations of the Perkins grant. And those are listed in the first 6 pages. So when you're looking at that lofty document, the first six pages are that. In some of the other grants, they're at the end of the grant. Funding is used to support our career and technical education program at King George High School and at King George Middle School. However, it may not supplant the local funding. So anything that we use the funding for must be in addition to what the division is already spending for those programs. So if we were to not receive that award, we would still be able to hold our programs is the best way to look at it. The majority of the funding is used for equipment and supplies. The grant also supports professional development, and the grant may not be used for consumables. So especially for career and technical education, we can't use it to purchase wood or metal or nails or paper or nursing supplies or any of those kinds of things that are very important for our CTE programs. Do I have any questions about the grant?
Go ahead. Did you have one?
Christine, do you have the grant there with you on Schedule 7? Page 14.
Sure.
It's just a misspelled word.
Oh, okay. Page 7?
Schedule 7, page 14.
If you want to email it to me, you can, or I can fix it right, put a big circle on it
Yep,
right here.
put a big circle on it right now. It'd be
Okay.
fine. Second line.
I'm not sure my page is, okay. Schedule 7, several pages. Go ahead.
Like page 14,
Okay.
second line.
Oh, there it is.
There you
I
go.
have a C instead of an X. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mr. Rolls, go ahead.
got a question on page 7 with all the percentages there for our performance assessment for 2022 to 2023. A general question first. So,
Page 7?
yes.
Okay.
It's actually listed as page 1, though.
Oh, is it? Yeah,
Goes from
sorry, it
page
goes from
6.
6 to then 1.
It goes from page 6 to 1.
But it's the performance assessment for 2022, 2023.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So a lot of those categories could be just talk about our school in general. So I'm wondering in what way they're tied specifically to the Perkins grant. For instance, the very first one is just our 4-year graduation rate, and it shows that the Virginia agreed upon target is 94.5%. We're at 84.66%. So is that our graduation rate overall, or is that somehow tied to just CTE?
Just tied to CTE. Those are the completers that are part of our CTE program. So a completer is somebody who has completed a sequence of courses in CTE.
Okay, so it's not just like all the classes, or there's a certain track or something, or for?
No, there's no. What do you mean by track?
Well, you said a sequence. So what do you mean by sequence? I guess.
So if I take, let's say, landscaping 1 and landscaping 2, or I take nurse aid 1 or nurse aid 2, that's that would be somebody who completed a CTE program.
Okay, so somebody starts something like that, and they decide they don't like it, they don't want to do it anymore, that counts against us?
They would not be considered a completer. So if they only took one CTE course.
Okay, that seems strange to me that the state wants 94% completed, which I think one big point of CTE is just try different things, and you'll find out that some things you don't like, and that's fine. But
that's true.
This is our first year, right? Our second year. How long have we been doing the CTE programs, the 13?
Since the schools opened, probably. We've had career and technical education for years.
So you mean Ms. Rinko's position is probably what you're thinking of.
Maybe I'm getting, yeah. But I also, before getting on the board, was told that we didn't have a program anymore and stuff, and then found out we did. So I just didn't know if it had left and come back, is what I was told.
No, not at all. That's a misconception.
Okay, thank you.
Well, so then I guess I'll ask another one. So for the academic proficiency, reading, language, arts, and the percentages for that too. So how is that specifically tied to CTE? Just to understand the numbers.
So any student that took a CTE course, we're measuring their SOL data with this. So we are looking at if they're proficient in math, science, or reading in those numbers there. And these numbers are, if you were to look up the Perkins grant anywhere in the United States, these are the same performance standards for any school division in the United States. So they look for academic proficiency in these areas.
Okay, so it's 99%. When we see reading, language, arts, that's based on like the English SOL?
That's correct. We use the SOL as the data point for that.
Okay.
In Virginia.
Yeah.
It might be different in another state, depending on what their federal accountability measures are.
So I just don't think when we're looking at SOL assessments that we're doing that well, that 99% of all of our students were proficient in English. So why is this number so high? I mean, is it?
It's the CTE program only.
It's
not the whole
CTE
school.
completers.
Yeah, it's just.
Okay, so of all the students who complete CTE
yes.
Sequence, they're 99% proficient.
So it shows the real value of our CTE program. Sorry, throw that in.
Well, yeah, so it's sort of selecting amongst students who actually complete the programs, probably are just better students in general.
Yes. That's right.
Okay. So special population, can you define that? That's the other column.
Special populations would include many different subgroups. So special populations, it's defined a little bit later in the grant, but it would include students that are special needs, students that are economically disadvantaged, students that are from a single parent home. Those are some examples.
Okay, so they're all just piled into a separate group and taken
They
in
are-
aggregate to,
They are lumped together.
okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I was just gonna say that down where it says the program quality attained recognized post-secondary credentialing. The fact that we were over 99% on that when the state only expects 65%, I thought that was excellent. That's amazing that we're doing that well.
Yeah, we do have a very solid program. I think you probably saw that last week when our department at the high school all showed up to present to you. We're very fortunate.
And similarly, I saw that for the program quality participation in work-based learning, we're at 22%, which is basically double what's required or expected by the state. And then also seeing the efforts that we're doing now to increase work-based learning, I imagine it's going to get even better. So that's
Agreed. Thank you.
Yes, 100% for technical skills quality attainment. Program quality, 100%.
Yeah.
What is the total of the entire grant? Is that at the bottom? That's 61, whatever it was? Is
Yes.
that the total? 61,000,
I should have that off the top of my head. I don't. I have
61,100.
to find it in here.
Is it right? I just want to make sure I'm reading it right. It's the last page, $61,148.67. Is
Yes,
that it?
that's correct.
Okay.
And then what we do in the division is we break that out into different funds for each department or each, area. So yes, $61,148.67.
And where does the 8,000, the capital outlay, where does that start? Because that is in other words, the what it's used for. You understand what I'm
Oh,
saying?
the capital outlay?
Yeah.
Well.
I know it's in here. I'm sorry. It just got
No,
50
it's-
pages and I don't know what.
I can show you.
I mean, it's the major portion of the grant, so.
Is it one? Yeah. Mhm. Here you go. Let me grab one. I'm sorry, I didn't use
Use enough for. Well, you want one.
So this is not a part of the grant. This is not an official document.
Right.
This is a document that I create to help guide us through spending this
Oh, this is good.
funding.
It's excellent.
And so what's important is that you can see on the far left that there are a lot of categories that need to be funded. And then in the middle is the amount that we allocate to those programs. Now, this is a fluid document. So there are times where a teacher may not spend down an allocation, and so then that's moved to another area. Often we have to move funding from some of the areas in the pale green there. We have to move that around quite a bit.
Sure.
So this just helps keep us, in spending as it is determined in the grant.
Yeah, this is good. It almost should be, it really can't be included with this, but it's valuable that you made this for us. Thank you.
Better.
No, this is good. Also with the teachers' names who's responsible for spending it. This is,
Well, that just helps me. There are a lot of people in our
Excellent.
school division.
Yeah. Oh, it's good. Any further questions about this? Is this time sensitive where you need to have it approved?
It is. If you want to wait until the next time, that's fine. But if you can approve it tonight, that's also great.
Christine, I have one more question, please.
Yes.
I read through here that the NJROTC does not get Perkins Funds money.
That's right.
But they're part of CTE.
We include it.
I assume that there's a reason somewhere
They
within.
get federal funding from another source, so they're not included. That's not our decision. That's a federal
mandate
law.
Okay.
right? So, but we still include them because they provide work-based learning and the same types of experiences for students. But their funding comes directly from the Navy.
Go ahead.
Ms. Hill, I know, I'm reading right here. It says if a performance standard is not met, the school division must explain why and take actions to improve. Is there anything you guys need from us in order to help our completers complete, or the ones that aren't completing to complete it, so that doesn't hurt us from getting the grant?
I mean, really just, no, it's a formula grant, so we'll get it awarded. The only reason we would ever not get this grant awarded is if we were non-compliance. And so we, even when we might not meet a target, as long as we have a plan to do our best to get to that point and to change things, to do things differently, to look at things with a different lens and try to figure out a way. So
is it what Mr. Roll said of why they don't complete it is to just change their mind?
Well,
most of the time?
It could be a variety of reasons.
Moving
Yes,
different things.
sometimes going into a different area would create somebody to not finish and be a completer. Sometimes, it's hard or it's not something that they're interested in. Could be a lot of different reasons.
I think I actually misread that. I think it says that 84% of the completers graduate in 4 years.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
So yeah, so it just means that more of them are choosing not to graduate in 4 years.
Say that again?
It's not that they start a CTE program and don't finish it, because we're talking
4
about
years, yeah.
completers, people who did complete, did they graduate within 4 years?
That's right. So it could have taken them 5 years or they could have graduated early.
So if they graduate early, it doesn't count as graduating in 4 years, it counts against us?
No, it doesn't count against us.
They still completed the program.
But-
Okay.
But they may not be a completer within that time if they graduate early. If they didn't complete 2 classes. That would be another reason why a student would not be considered a completer and count in the 4-year graduation rate.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't read the exact plan, but I suppose it's in there and it's not a concern as far as addressing that being below the
It's
state target.
actually, this number is lower than what we normally have.
Mm.
So, and I'm not exactly sure why.
And any further questions? All right, I think Christine, Ms. Hill would like to have a motion. And the motion probably should include the figure at the very bottom, at the last page. I assume.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. That'd be great.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the CTE budget in the amount of $61,148.67.
A second.
Actually, it's the Carl D. Perkins. Oh, yes, grant. That's okay. It's not the whole CTE. Yeah, I think we understood, so we'll make that change. So we have a motion to approve the Carl D. Perkins grant in the amount of $61,148.67, seconded by Ms. Davis. Any further discussion?
I mean, it's just, we're approving the application to go out, right, is what we're doing.
Correct.
Correct. Sorry. Yeah, probably would have been good to say we're approving the application to be submitted for that amount.
That amount may change.
Yeah, I understand. All right, any further discussion?
What would change it?
We would get a larger or a smaller allocation from the state, depending on the formula.
And the formula could change. Okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. It's passed. Carl D. Perkins application is approved to submit. All right, thank you. That was a lot of work. Appreciate it. Oh, look at, she's been waiting.
I'm just trying to give ourselves a brain break here for a second.
Oh, neat.
T-shirt for you guys if they're not the right size. Let me know. I guess.
Thank you.
And Chad already has
Thank you.
kids because of course he's volunteer and that's.
Thank you.
For Wednesday. Happening on Wednesday apparently.
Yeah, it does sound like it. It's going to be a busy day.
Oh, okay.
I have one.
I can give it to her.
I have to move around a little.
All right, so we have the Special Education Plan Part B, flow through application and report.
We do. And mine is a formula grant as well, and it's a lot more straightforward. Thank goodness I don't have SOL data to tie to. Anyway, so this flyer here, is just something that I wanted to share. Mr. Bush is our chairperson for the SEAC committee, and we hosted our second annual resource fair through the SEAC committee, the support of it. This is the SEAC this year has taken on this as another goal for the year to host this at our library. And last year was the first year. We had about 28 vendors. And this year we had about 32. That's a lot. People in the region have heard about us, so we're really proud of it. And we have really helped a lot of families, especially one population that has surfaced is really our English as a second language population. Have started to come to our events more now. And our chairperson, Miss Naimi, speaks Spanish fluently, so that really helps too. So I just wanted to bring that up. And it's important for me to mention that because our annual plan has to be, by law, has to be presented to the SEAC committee first. So that was presented at our last SEAC committee. And I'm going to back up for just a second and say good evening. I am Dr. Howard, the Supervisor of Special Services for the division, and I welcome all the new members and returning members from last year. My presentation is very straightforward, and I am here to present the proposal for the local special education annual plan Part B flow through funding for the upcoming school year. Again, it is a grant application. And this money comes from the state and is in addition to the special education section of the annual school budget. This plan is reviewed by the Special Education Advisory Committee before it comes to the school board as required. So it's just a quick breakdown of the plan on the next 3 slides. And before I tell you that, just the quick background of the reason why we have this is because under the provisions of the Individuals with Disability Education Act of 2004, which is also known as IDEA, and Ms. Hill did bring that up, it's a federally implemented regulation, and it regulates the governing of special education programs for children with disabilities in Virginia. The local educational agencies, which are the LEAs, are required to submit this annual plan, the Part B flow-through application, for providing special education and related services to children with disabilities. The 24-25 Special Education Annual Plan Part B flow-through application serves as that formal agreement between the local school board and the Virginia Department of Education for implementing the federal and state laws and regulations governing these services. Accordingly, the disbursement of state and federal funds appropriated for the education of children with disabilities is contingent upon the approval of this plan and all the components. So if we look at slide 1, or slide 2, I should say, this 611, there are two grants in the annual plan. It's 611, and that funding is to be used for all students with disabilities from kindergarten to 12th grade. The majority of the 611 funds were used. This is a review of 22 implementation. It's always like a year behind, and clearly we haven't finished this year. So that's why it says 22-23. So those funds were mainly used to employ teachers and support staff for students with disabilities. The funds were also used to purchase supplies to support classroom instruction, assessment materials, purchase and fix assistive technology devices, provide services to students, and for professional development for special education personnel and related service providers. So the next pot of money is the 619 funding, which is for our early childhood special education, our ECE building. This funding is used for the materials that we need for our early childhood special education programs, which serve students with disabilities in our pre-K program. The instructional and assessment materials are purchased, testing protocols and kits that we use to screen students for the program, applications that we use for assistive technology devices, and we're able to use consumables that are replenished annually. Finally, the funds were also utilized for professional development for special education and related service personnel. Next slide. So there's a piece of it that's called the maintenance of effort. And that maintenance of effort is what our division with Sherry Williams, the finance manager, we have to make an effort to spend the same amount of money as last year or more every year based on our numbers. So they just hold us accountable for making sure that we are using the money they give us and using it for our students. Because if not, then they start telling us exactly how much we have to set aside. And we're great. We've done a phenomenal job with the maintenance of effort. So it's a really great place to be. So then the next piece of it is the CEIS, is that Coordinated Early Intervention Services, and we're not required because we're following the maintenance of effort and we're spending our monies appropriately. So the CEIS is when they come in and say, you have to spend this much money on the little people because you're not spending your right money. So we're doing great on that. We're not required to set aside money for that. Then the last piece of it is the proportionate set aside. It's also called the PSA. And this year, we're proposing to set aside $5,662.63. And again, that's a formula. And I know, Mr. Rolls, you have amazing questions about that. I think you asked me last year, so I'll address that because it's really important for the community to understand. Our homeschool students, this is really for them. And this is for we don't have a private school in King George, right? So we call them private day schools, but they're homeschool students in King George because we don't have a private school here. Some divisions do. But we set aside that money, and this is what I'm proposing based on the formula. It's just a formula. And this is for students who are homeschooled, and it is our obligation to offer what we call a service plan for them. And if in their IEP, it stipulates that they need occupational therapy, physical therapy, and or speech and language therapy, then we pay for it. So they're able to come to the schools and work with our therapists and receive those services based on what their IEP says. If they want it, obviously they don't have to. And right now we have 6 students now that have service plans in our division. A couple of them moved away. Okay. And then here's our proposal. Again, these are automated formulas. So the 611 projection for the grants that we're requesting is $1,051,884. This is to support 11 staff members, supplies, contracted services, professional development, and travel. The professional development and travel has really, it's really something that we're proud of because we have been able to really train a lot of teachers and send a lot of our staff to William & Mary for their TTAC programs and their professional development, and also bring them here. The 619 projection, which is the preschool, that's why it's a much smaller number, is $23,141.40. And again, this covers supplies. So all the testing materials that we use, like if a parent calls and says, hey, I think my child might have a disability, and we come in, we have a meeting, we talk, all the supplies that we use are supplemented with this amount. Contracted services for some of our speech and OT and PT service providers. And then finally, the professional development and travel as well. Okay. think that's the end of my slide. So I know that I went over that pretty quickly. It's pretty straightforward. That concludes my presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Did you see she looked at Matt first?
Oh,
You guys
Mr.
are great
Rolls has-
students.
I actually
She said.
have a question this time too, but Mr. Rolls, go ahead. We'll start with you.
If
So-
you didn't have questions, I'd worry.
What's wrong? Right.
We all,
The proportionate set aside,
yes, sir.
proportional to what? Like, how's that calculated?
That's a
Big
great
picture?
question.
Yeah.
So the proportionate set aside is they take how many students that you have that are homeschooled, and they look at historically what services they needed. So whether that was a speech service plan or an occupational therapy service plan, and then they give us a number based on how many students we have. So there's this day in December, it's called December 1. And it's like, if you're an accountant, it's taxed. It's like whatever it is, April 14th. And that day is a snapshot in time on December 1 of how many students in King George have IEPs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how many go to private day, how many are homeschooled. And from that information, they come up with the formula and say, here's how much money you need to set aside for those students so that you can service them when they, because that's our obligation, is to have those services available if they need them and want them.
Okay,
Does that answer your question?
it does somewhat. So my question was more, since we've changed policy recently as far as reporting for religious exemption. So if you have kids who are homeschooled under religious exemption as opposed to just say a letter of intent for home instruction. So did that count? You're counting them as homeschooled at that point?
You know what? If you live in King George, we are the LEA. We are obligated, if you have an IEP, to provide, to be like your person that are your division that provides services. So it doesn't matter if they're homeschooled for religious exemption. That has nothing to do with it. It's just you live in King George. And if you have an IEP and you need speech or OT or PT or any of that, we hold a meeting and then we talk about how many hours and all those things and decide the logistics from that point forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, so to what extent does the proportionate set aside even matter? Because if somebody has a need, they pay taxes, we accommodate them, right?
You're right. And that's sort of what this grant is so great, because it helps us, because the federal government realizes the extreme cost of the caring for and providing education for students with disabilities. So this is in addition to what we get in our local budget.
Just the proportionate set aside, or?
The proportionate set aside is just for those students that are homeschooled if they have a service plan.
Okay.
Okay.
But when you're saying it's for homeschools, but so you're saying it doesn't matter, but we are identifying certain students that money is for.
Right. And so basically, we have students who go through the program, right, that register, let us know that they're homeschooled. So I have parents that call me and say, hey, we just moved here. I'm homeschooled. What can you do for me? That's what this money is for, if they choose to take those services, if they need them in their IEP, because not every student that has an IEP needs these related services. But it's additional money that we're getting to safeguard them, but we wouldn't turn them away.
Okay.
We would figure it out. Does that help?
Yep, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? I have a question. Do you have one, Mr.?
I don't have any questions. I've spent a little bit of time with Dr. Howard, and I think they're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think so too.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, after attending of you, and I'm sorry I missed the last meeting.
No, our condolences, Mr. Bush, completely.
Sorry. But I do have a question more about the proportionate set aside.
Yes.
What happens if you have, I mean, again, this can happen. If you have a student that comes and they have an IEP, but let's just say it's a big one. Okay?
Right. This happens a lot.
I mean, let's just say it's way beyond, even, let's say the occupational therapy alone is, say they come from a division or somewhere else that they were spending $25,000 a year on this particular person. Okay. I know that in the future, then the formula would change drastically for the next year, assuming they would stay. But what do you do when they first come in? And then the change would probably still not be enough to meet the need totally of that one individual?
Well, is that student coming to our school division to come to our public school? Is that what you mean?
Let's just say they're homeschooled.
They're homeschooled.
They're homeschooled, and they were in the last area, they spend about $25,000 on occupational and physical therapy.
Right. So typically what we do when a student moves here from anywhere in the country, the world, we have a transfer IEP meeting and we sit down and we talk about what the student needs. We typically accept the transfer IEP meeting based on what it says, and then we have 30 days to rewrite it. It's very similar for a homeschool student, because if we don't have the resources, then we got to find them. We have to figure it out. But a student, the reason why they have this formula is because of not only history, but what's reasonable, right? Because there are just typical standards of what a student, based on their ages, need and their severity of their need. If there's a student that moves here that has a super significant need, then we would have to find a way to make it work somehow. And there, we would have to either have a service provider come in and service them some more. That's never happened, because that's why they go with these formulas and these numbers. They look at your historical trajectory and your demographic of your community.
I was just thinking of an actual student that had come in, and this was it's so many years ago. I don't think I'm divulging anything that's confidential anymore.
That's
I'm not going to, but it was a smooth-brained person. He had no speech. He had nothing.
Right.
And it literally was $20,000, $30,000 a year, and the care, the machines, everything. And he came into our division. He was a 10-year-old, I believe. Point is that was a significant. How much in terms of this particular grant when they first come in? And two questions in. When they first came in, and there's no way we would have to have some outside help with that. And I would assume that even the current formula, it wouldn't change for this year.
Not for this year.
But then even for the following year, would it cover all those things that we couldn't cover, or it would just change slightly? In other words, the state, they're dictating it. They probably would not make it a $25,000 raise if that's what it cost us.
They might, but there's also another grant called the CISNA grant, which is Student Intensive Support Need Grant. So the government definitely realizes that we have those needs, and that would be a grant that we would probably be able to apply for that student.
Okay. That's a good point.
Right.
Sorry, it was way out.
No, those are great questions. I could talk all night about it. So.
All right, then that's good. All right, any other further questions? Do I have a motion? Oh, did you have a comment?
No, I was just going to ask if we
Yes,
need we need a motion this evening.
It would be great if you could. That way we can get it all wrapped up.
Yeah, let's do that.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the 2024-2025 Special Educational Annual Plan / Part B flow-through application as written.
I have a second.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Chair votes aye, passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tremendous amount of work. Keep it up. You do a great job. And when I've attended the SEAC meetings, and I will be at the next one unless something drastic happens.
No, it's great.
All right, thank you. All right, let's move on. The next item is the authorization of signatures in the absence of the superintendent.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Each year, the school division is required by the Department of Education to approve and authorize a person to sign all Virginia Department of Education reports, documents, requisitions, and other official correspondence in the absence of the division superintendent. My recommendation this evening is to authorize and approve Dr. Troy Wright as the designee for signature in the absence of the superintendent for a period of July 1, 2024 through the end of June 30th, 2025.
Do I have a motion?
I move that we authorize and approve Dr. Troy Wright as the designee for signature in the absence of the superintendent for the period of July 1st, 2024 through the end of June 30th, 2025.
A second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Thank you. All right, now we have the policy updates. If the board members would turn to those, the first one is BBFA. And if you would look to that, get to that one it's about, let's see, what's the title? Conflict and interest of disclosure of economic interests. And specifically on about page 2, it has to do with foreign country of concern. If you'd read those, I know hopefully some of you read through, that's a lot to read. But basically, it's taking that one paragraph, most of it taking it out and putting it in different bullet points, which some of it's the same, some of it's different. Any questions about any of those? Again, we don't have to approve this today, so this is the first time you've seen it, except for, well, it was obviously in your packet on Thursday. So, any questions about this one?
Well, I'd make a point that there's a mistake in it on page 7. If you scroll down to the third to last bullet, it adds his or her and then crosses out school board members or employees.
Oh, yeah.
But they forgot to delete the word the before the school board members. So now it reads by the performance of the his or her official duties. So that the needs to be stricken as well.
Yeah, it needs to take out the, very good, thank you. And I would like to leave that. I can, thank you, Dr. Boyd. You knew that this would be the correction we would want, so he automatically did it for us.
I have to give Ms. Bushrod the credit for that.
So you see what we're talking about, everyone, board members? In other words, we had in the past, most of the things we've said was his or her. We haven't changed those. We left them the same. So again, we're doing that. We're leaving it the same. We are making the other changes shown above that I just mentioned, where they changed that paragraph to a bunch of bullets and made very minor changes in those. And then, of course, this at the bottom with the his or her, which will keep the same, but we'll strike the. We'll leave it like it is otherwise. Any further questions?
So this shows the his or her being added. Was the VSBA making some change here? It's not clear.
No, I think this was in the original, wasn't it?
This was the original.
I think the his or her was in the original, Mr. Rolls.
And then it's
showing us new. Okay, so it was already there.
I think Cheryl underlined that. Is that what you mean?
Right. So the VSBA was trying to change to school board members.
Correct. They were trying to change it from his or her to the school board members or employees.
And I think actually looking at this, we passed this policy many meetings ago actually. And we left all the his and hers in there, except for in those 2 bullet points. So Cheryl went back in and adjusted them the way that I believe the board wanted them.
Because the whole point is under E is the general conduct of the school board members.
Right.
So they didn't need to say that. Of course, again, you have a little bit of an agenda, and that's why in the past, this particular board has left the his or her. Any further discussion? Again,
Some brings up some, I think, important points, and I mostly saw it in the recent COIA training. I guess we all did it again this year about VSBA, or dinners at VSBA that are, funded by companies and stuff. So, I got an email from the COIA council that I'll forward to you all about that as far as proper reporting for that.
We are supposed to report it?
Yeah.
Oh, you're so wonderful. Thank you for pointing that out. It's a good point, and I can see where we will do that, or not accept the food. One of the 2. Thank you, Mr. Rawls. You are correct. Does everybody know what he's talking about? Mr. Rawls, you probably have to explain it.
I'll just send the email. It'll be easier.
Oh, just give us a clip note.
In the Koya training, when many times when you're receiving gifts or you're receiving things like from VSBA and other places that they do for us when we're there, some of those that exceed
$100
for that type of thing, we have to report it.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, we can't accept more than $100. But I don't know. I don't remember the reporting threshold, but there's some threshold below that you have to report it. So between that threshold and $100, it's okay. You got to report it. But I guess there's some exception for over $100 if it's part of a widely attended event. But so just you gotta. I mean, a lot of rules. It's really boring stuff, but
But when does the VSBA give us gifts?
When they feed us all those meals.
You pay $250 to go.
Yeah, I'm talking about like when Honeywell takes you out to eat for dinner.
They haven't taken me out to eat.
Okay, you're good.
Well, they've taken me out.
You're.
All right, but you are correct, Mr. Rolls. Thank you. All right, any other conversation about this? Do you, board, what's the position of the board? Do you want to go ahead and approve this now rather than waiting till next time?
Just with that one change. Is amended.
This is, yes, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
You want to make the motion, Mr. Rolls?
I move that we approve policy BBFA as amended.
Did you get the amendment, Dr. Boyd?
Yes, sir.
Taken out do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Policy BBFA as amended has been approved. All right, next one. Is the BCE, the school board committees. Any comments about that? We go way, way down. Basically, it's some very small changes. Special committees may be appointed by the chairman. Instead of chairman, they put chair. I don't have as much a problem with that one as I did the his and her. It could be similar, but personally, I don't. But any other board members, how do you feel about that? Again, always understanding that these are recommendations that VSBA is making, unless it's specifically something in Virginia code.
I think it's unnecessary, but we've actually been making that change for years now, so I don't know.
They just keep as chair instead of chairman, or keep it chairman?
Yeah, I think we have a lot of things to change back if we change our minds now. So I guess we'll just go with it.
So leave it like that. Everybody understand? I think it's kind of like we've already really done that. Madam Chair, might say Chairman Bush or whatever. All right,
It says man.
Yeah, in other words, yeah. I mean, obviously, if you're talking to me, you could say chairman, and if you're talking to a woman, you say Madam Chair. So the concept of chair is, to me, is also fine instead of chairman. It's a very short one. Any other comments? Otherwise, we could approve this one too.
I move that we approve policy BCE as presented.
Have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. BCE is passed. BCF, advisory committees to the school board. This is only the addition, I believe, of the cross-referencing, it looks like.
Yes, sir.
That's, it's almost a moot point, but I understand it needs to be there. Do I have a motion with this one? All they did was add the two cross-references.
I move that we approve policy BCF as presented.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, it's approved. BDA, regular school board meetings. Same thing. All they did was put some cross references for BDD and BDDL. So do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve BDA as presented.
Second.
Mr. Rolls, second that one. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. BDA is approved. BDD, electronic participation in school board meetings from remote locations.
Same thing.
Same thing. All there is a crop reference, BDDL. So do I have a motion unless there's discussion about it?
I move that we approve policy BDD as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. BDD is passed. BDDA, notification of meetings.
Same thing again.
Same thing again. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve BDDA as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. BDDA is also passed. All these were unanimous. BDDF, voting method. Again, same thing. I have a motion.
I move that we approve policy BDDF as presented.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. BDDF is passed. BDDG.
Same thing. Last
Same thing. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve policy BDDG as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Again, BDDG. It's been passed. Food services, EFB. This one actually has something. If it's down on page 2.
It's on page 2.
Yeah, each elementary and secondary school possesses each web-based and paper-based application participation in the school breakfast program or the national lunch program with 6 working days after the date of receipt of the completed application. I believe that was the only change, wasn't it, Dr. Boyd?
Yes, sir.
That seemed pretty reasonable to you, Dr. Boyd.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
I would think it would too. Any further discussion about this one? All right, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve policy EFB as written.
Second.
It was, motion was made by Mr. Franken, seconded by Ms. Davis, in case they couldn't hear that. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Chair votes aye. EFB is passed, and I believe that is the last one. It is.
Yes.
Phew. All right, well, thank you for patience, and I think we knocked all of them out. All right, we have the committee reports. We'll start with Mr. Rolls.
Is it community reports?
Yes, committee reports.
Nothing to report.
Ms. Davis, committee reports? Mr. Frank, committee report?
Yes, on the 4th of April, met with, for the Code of Conduct Committee in the school board office. Great meeting. Mary Fisher really does a super job. So everything went well.
All right, I had a meeting, and we have a monthly meeting at the lab school, ATI, and it went well. I think we approved a budget. Boy, so many things have gone on since then. We approved a budget, and also quite a lot of discussions about beginning the new year. We'd hired and about to hire people, and we did hire the office manager, that's right. So things are moving forward very fast with the lab school. And I believe that each time we have a meeting, I feel a little more confident that this is going to work. It is a little scary, I think, to begin a whole new school like this. But we have Stafford School Division on board with it, very much so, and Mary Washington. And those are the two main components, and they're very much on board with the whole program. And I'm hopeful. And obviously, the beginning of next year, I hope to visit, like several of the board members from the other divisions that are also involved. And so there's a monthly meeting, so pretty much every other board meeting, I'll have a report. All right, next on the agenda, superintendent's report.
Yes, really quickly, we have a couple dates. So I sent out an email about the October 28th school board meeting. We did reschedule that to October 30th. So that's from Monday, the 28th to Wednesday, the 30th for the VSBA. If you remember that email I sent again in October. So if there's no concern about that, that should be good to go right now. Again, that's a little far off into the future, but just wanted to give everybody enough notice.
That needs to be approved though, for a budget, for a motion the next meeting or so?
We don't have to have a motion to reschedule a school board meeting, as long as everybody's okay with it.
Okay, all right.
And then just wanted to remind the board that we were able to secure a meeting with the Board of Supervisors to specifically discuss the preschool, and that meeting will be on April 15th.
A week from today.
A week from today, and that'll be here.
And that's at 6.
Yes, sir.
5:30, right?
Oh, is it 5:30?
It is. I think you're right, Mr. Frank, 5:30.
It is 5:30. Thank you, Mr. Frank.
It's 5:30. So if you don't mind just a minute, are the current board members, are you guys going to be able to be here? Mr. Rolls? Excellent. All right. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, and then just a couple things. The NJROTC ball on Saturday, I wanted to mention, was amazing. One of the best I've been to. The keynote speaker was our former school resource officer and former Marine, Mike Thompson, gave a wonderful speech. It was well attended. It's always one of those events that you leave with just restoring your faith in our, next generation that's going to be taking care of us someday. So it was very reassuring and a wonderful, wonderful event. Can't say enough about it. And then the feet meet also is on Wednesday. So another one of those events that you really don't want to miss. It's one of those events that always has you walking away saying you're just very appreciative of the effort that many of our teachers and many of our community members give to the students in this county. So if you're able, 10 o'clock on, yes, sir. Yep, 10 o'clock on Wednesday at the King George High School Stadium. And it's, like I said, one that if you can make it to, you'll walk away feeling very pleased about having attended. And then finally,
Can I interrupt you just for a minute? How long do you think that will last? I'm sorry, I haven't. Oh, okay, all right, thank you. I just have other meetings. I want to be there. Thank you.
Wonderful. All right, and then finally, between myself, Ms. Yazurski, Ms. Higgins, we're going to, we've had faculty meetings scheduled at every single school. We're going to go and discuss some of the finer points in the next week and a half of the budget with all of our staff members. And we're also going to talk to our staff members about the new Mark III benefits and things that they'll have the opportunity to explore in this coming open enrollment. So we think that'll go well with the staff, and we'll be doing that in the next week and a half. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. All right, board comments. Chad, right? We'll start with you this time, all right? You've been very patiently quiet, so it's your turn. Go.
Thank you guys so much for having me again. As always, sorry, Jonathan. So next Friday, we have our prom coming up. It's going to be hosted at the King George High School Stadium. The Met Gala is the theme. AP and SOL testing is coming up at the high school starting this month, more towards the end, and then into May. So fun times. Spring sports are doing well, and they're in their mid-season. King George High School Theater will be putting on their spring musical, which is Newsies, and that's coming up at the beginning of May. I don't know the exact date, but I believe it's like the first weekend in May, I want to say. King George High School had a variety talent show on Friday, March 22nd, and it was a fun, enjoyable time for the community to see the talent at King George High School. We have a lot of it. We had a spring pep rally on March 28th, right before the holiday break, and there was a lot of interactive competitions, and the King George High School STEP team put on a phenomenal performance for us. We also had a performance from one of our talented singers, Oscar Madison, and then we had a teacher and staff cake eating contest. Miss Brooks won that, which was a lot of fun to watch as a student, and it was a really good time. Germana recently has hosted at King George High School a core craft course and an entry-level skills in safety and basic construction skills for students to get more knowledge in trades. 13 of our students attended the first after-hours class. Speaking on what Dr. Boyd spoke on, the NJROTC hosted their annual ROTC ball this past Saturday. It was a beautiful ceremony and a nice way to celebrate our amazing NJROTC program. King George High School is currently offering our Saturday school and multiple sessions to help students become more prepared to upcoming exams, and also just really get them prepared for the subject matters, which is a really beneficial things to help our students succeed. And speaking on, King George High School will be hosting the annual Special Olympics feat meet, and we're extremely excited to host it, and we're extremely excited to participate. And that's all I have. Thank you guys so much for having me again.
Thank you. Mr. Frank.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Number one, I'd like to thank all the teachers and staff for everything you do. It's greatly appreciated by everyone. The pledge today given by the people of their two leaders of the PBIS, that sounds like a great program. So we need to, I'd like to know more about that. The Virginia School Board Association art contest was great. A lot of good stuff. We saw it when we were down in Washington Lee High School. It was really good. PTA Outstanding Educator Awards. I know a lot of them, knew a lot of those people that were there. All of them really, really good and well deserved. Student to student. You need to know more about that. That sounds like it's a really good thing to go on. And we definitely need to know a little more. I need to know a little more about that. I also attended the ball on Saturday night. That was my 29th ball. And by far one of the best that was there. And Mike Thompson made it with his comments. They were really, really good. Major Callahan and Messer and Helkel do such a great job with those students that they have. And I mean, they do have some quality students, a number of students that are going on, the seniors going on to the academies and the colleges are just amazing. So, but a great time. Thank you.
Good, Ms. Davis.
Yes. Kind of what he said, the PBIS program that's going on at Potomac by the teacher who won the Teacher Impact Award. Miss, I wrote her name down.
Candace Poles.
Poles, POLC, yeah, okay. It's such a selfless thing to do. She's trying to solve a problem with the gentleman that was with her. Who was that?
That's Shane Pacelli, I think is how you say his last name.
And that she's been there for 9 years and she still has this drive to make a difference was pretty powerful. For the Teacher Impact Awards, my son had Miss Hanks, so I understand exactly what they said when she makes the children feel comfortable and confident. Those are probably two of my son's best character traits right now. Not character traits, but something, he's very comfortable and he's very confident in who he is. And I always tell her whenever I see her that she was a part of that with him. He's super smart. He's like a genius, I would say. 97 is the lowest grade, and that's not open in a book. And she just made his experience at preschool really amazing. And congratulations to all the teachers again. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Mr. Rolls.
I'll just also mention the PBIS at Potomac. That's a great program, I know. This is because also when she was here, she always sang its praises, and I know it's had a great impact. So it's good to see that's still going strong. And I'd like to congratulate all the kids who were winners in the VSB art contest. It was good to get to see some of that when we all went to, I forget what high school, but it was all on display there. Then for the PTA, appreciate them all taking the time to recognize teachers. Obviously, it's not an easy job at all, so it's great for them to take the time to show appreciation for teachers who are going above and beyond. So I'd like to congratulate all the winners. Again, Jennifer Hanks, Candace Poles, Edison Hanahan, Molly Metz, Samantha Phillips, and Amanda Stepp. You're not making a big difference, so well done. Also, it's always good to see Pastor Davis here come and reading to us, so thank him for coming again. And yeah, sadly didn't make it to the the ball for the first time. I guess it was a bad one to miss, but oh well. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Just a couple of things. First of all, the same thing the rest of my board members said about appreciated the PTA awards. They were wonderful. And of course, Ms. Rinko, seems to be involved with almost everything, but she always does a good job. And then the Potomac, the S2S, student to student, I thought that's wonderful. And the whole military, I'd like to see us win that award at some point. And I had not even heard of that. This is my first time. So it's a pleasure to hear those kinds of things, and especially people come forward and talk about them. Hopefully that'll be a growing program, especially since we have such a large military contingent here and the children of military. And I was especially, as I mentioned to her, just thinking about, we don't know what kind of conflicts may come up in the future, but the children oftentimes don't necessarily receive the attention they need if something happens with their parents when they're deployed. Oh yeah, remember that we're having a meeting. Our next meeting is the 24th of April. I believe that's a Wednesday. Is that correct, Dr. Boyd?
Yes, sir.
And so it's changed. It's not on a Monday, it's a Wednesday. And we will be going into closed session. We're going to do a formative evaluation of the superintendent. So please, if you haven't, you don't have to send those forms to me, but bring them if you don't mind, that I sent to you.
Oh, yes, I have it. I was just wondering if we wanted to change that closed session and make that at the end of the meeting instead of at the beginning, since it's going to take us a while, probably. What just the other opinions?
It's a good point. Is that an opinion of the board to change that closed session to the end? Because we'll obviously continue to present new personnel, but then we'll also include this. I don't think it's valuable to have two closed meetings, so what's the feeling of the rest of the board? You want to change that one to the end of the?
I don't know. Do we really think there's going to be that many people who want to stay beyond the closed session anyways? I think usually it's stuff that only most people aren't going to stick around for anyways.
I guess it depends on what's on the agenda.
Why don't you let Dr. Boyd and I, since we have quite a large discussion about the agenda each time, let's look and see how much is on there, and we'll make that decision if that's okay with the board. All right. Thank you for bringing that up. You have a good point. All right. Also, I did want to mention that this was brought up, and it's true that if you look in the policy in terms of the superintendent, that it clearly shows that the formative should be done, I think, before June 1st and the summative before December. But in our norms and protocols, those are different dates. So we need to make a change to the norms and protocols, and I think that needs to be maybe on the agenda next time. Yeah. I'll show you which one it is, but if we put that on, it's a very short thing. All we're going to do is match the norms and protocols with what we already have in our policy. That's all it is. Oh yes, I visited a week and a half ago. I visited King George Elementary. I took the whole day almost. King George Elementary for several hours, and I was really visited with a lot of teachers. I know that Mr. Frank and Ms. Davis and others do that quite often, but I visited with a whole team. I think it was the first grade team, and it's like they wanted to talk to me their whole time, like 45 minutes. It was wonderful. And also visited with the principal for a good hour to an hour and a half, which was rather interesting. But it was a wonderful visit. I appreciated it. Walked around, saw a lot of things at King George Elementary. Then I went from there to King George Middle School and spent actually another 2-3 hours there during their lunchtime. And then I spent the end of the time at the preschool because it had been a few months since I'd been there. And especially since we were talking about all the concerns about the building a new preschool and connecting it with the elementary possibly, and how does that affect the whole, what word am I using?
Vibe.
Anyway, the whole process of us, we've already submitted for having our capital improvement plan and the possible changes with all that. Anyway, so I had the discussion with the director of the preschool, and that was a very good discussion. And also the pictures, even though Dr. Boyd shared pictures with us last time, I think it'd be valuable to bring some of those pictures again. In fact, there was even a discussion about the possibility of having this joint meeting at the preschool. But as I made some phone calls, that didn't go over real well because they're afraid it might be on the newspaper. So we're going to have the meeting here. Although I thought that was kind of an interesting idea.
Yeah, I like that.
Pardon?
I liked it too.
Yeah, that would have been a good one. Oh, yes, and I need to visit with your staff to talk about the surveys that we're gonna be doing. It needs to be done about the superintendent, and I'll get with you sometime in the next week or so, and we'll talk about the surveys, okay? I'd like to look at them again, and maybe we might want to tweak them slightly. I'll present it to the board and then give them back to you, and then we'll put them out there, okay? Try to have that done before May. All right, that's all from me. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We are adjourned.